Italy catch Scotland cold as they win in Rome. My name's Mark. Let's talk rugby. Fantastic performance from Italy in this one. Very difficult conditions for both teams, but they showed a lot of ambition in the first half, and then showing the composure as well to hang on there in the second half as well. So let's go through the game, and then we'll come back to each of the teams. So first of all, we have an early drive from Italy at a line-out maul. Scotland penalty. They go up the line into the 22. It's a decent position, but Italy steal the line-out and they can kick clear. And Italy stealing Scotland line-out was a big theme of today. Italy then very competitive at the breakdown, and they win a penalty for holding on. They go up the line into the Scotland half. They then strike off the line out. They move it infield, recycle. It looks like they're shaping to go out left, and Scotland only have one player sweeping, and but like it's brilliant setup from Italy, making it look like they're definitely going left. So the cover for Scotland heads that way, but then they switch and go right. Brex then kicking behind. Lina wins the race to the ball and goes over to score, and really well, thought out and executed from them. The conversion attempt from Gerbisi comes back off the post, 5 points to 0. Scotland then win a penalty in a scrum as Ferrari is pinged for going to his knees, and Scotland then kick to the corner, but Zambonin again stealing the line out, and Italy are able to clear. Then, having soaked up the pressure, Italy then strike again. Great box kick from Fusco, claimed in the air by Lina. They then move the ball wide left, and Menoncello goes over in the corner. The really good kick for the conversion as well from Gerbisi, and it's 12 points to 0. Lorenzo Canone then offside, and Russell puts Scotland in the corner to go through a number of phases with penalty advantage. Great defence, keeping them out. Back for the penalty. Ashman taps, another penalty conceded, and it really does feel like a score is coming at this stage, because the pressure is there, the penalties are being conceded, and it's hard to see it not happening. Scotland tap again, few recycles, and then Dempsey crashes over from close range, convert for 12 points to 7. Tuipulotu then pinged for escorting at a kick, and Italy go up the line into 22. Scotland steal the line out, but it's slapped down into touch, so another chance for Italy. Scotland then jumping across, another penalty. Free play for Italy as they move it from the maul. They're not really going anywhere, so Gerbisi drops back into the pocket, but his drop goal attempt is very poor and misses. But then he does make amends for it from the tee when we go back for the penalty, 15 points to 7. Italy then push Scotland off their own ball in the scrum to go through a number of phases between the 10-metre line and the 22 before Gerbisi then tries another drop goal, this one from much longer distance, but with the same outcome, and the halftime score is 15-7. Into the second half, Finn Russell with a kicks a restart close to the touchline, gathered by an Italian. They're forced into touch, line out to Scotland on the edge of the 22, but Italy steal the line out, and Menoncello breaks in the middle. He's got Lina out wide right, but decides to keep going himself. It's then recycled. Gerbisi gets isolated about 10 metres out from the line, and penalty to Scotland. We then have a second penalty to Scotland that allows them to kick to the corner, but once again Italy disrupt the line out and are able to clear. Scotland not going away at this stage though, and they win a penalty into 22. Italy offside. They point to the post. Russell slots it for 15 points to 10. Italy then attack off a line out. They move it quickly. Cannone with a great carry. They go left and some decent carries before then coming back right. Looks like there's they've got maybe numbers out there, but it's kind of held on instead of passing it out. Get isolated, but we do then have a TMO check for a high tackle by Scotland. It's Ashman on Zuliani. It's decided that it's just a penalty as it's not a high degree of danger. Personally, I thought it was maybe borderline yellow on that one. Garbisi then pings the penalty over for 18 points to 10. Another scrum penalty for Italy, and they go up the line just inside the 22. Scotland, basically no set piece right now, and it's making it much harder for them to get back into this game. Then have a neck roll from Italy as they move it, and that was a real let off for Scotland because it felt like that was the period where Italy could have kind of not exactly like absolutely won the game, but they could have given themselves some more breathing room going down the stretch. Scotland then attacking into 22, but we have a TMO check for a clear out by Turner on Zuliani. It's to the head and there's no wrap. Yellow card for him and an off-field review. Scotland, the job that they had getting back in this game at that moment then gets immeasurably harder than it was even before then. Yet another scrum penalty to Italy, and they're like just strangling, that Scottish comeback at the minute, like strangling the life out of it. But at that stage I was feeling they needed, something going forward as well. You can't just be, in and around your own half defending. You have to provide something going forward. Around that time as well, we find that the yellow card will stay yellow card, and Italy do start, coming into the Scotland half. Scotland now, like, again, they have a little bit of a mini revival. They start beating Italy to all of those loose balls, and their kicking game is beginning to have an impact as well. They win a penalty. It's straight in front, but they decided they're going to go to the corner, and Scotland claimed the line out, set up the maul, and the backs pile in. And they're working, Italy working their way through the middle of the maul, and looks like they're maybe going to make it unplayable. So Horn snipes and slides into the corner, and Italy, the defence out there could have been, I think, better from them. Conversion then missed, 18 points to 15. So at this point then, we got a one-score game. We're going into just over 10 minutes to go at that point. Italy then playing in Scotland's half. They're looking to force a penalty or at least run the clock down. The penalty comes in the scrum. They turn down the shot at goal, and instead they kick to the corner. But they knock on in the line out. And now, by this point, though, they have taken a big chunk of that time away. We've got 2 minutes to go. And Scotland have basically got to go from their own line if they're going to win this. But they're helped by a scrum penalty. That gets them to their own 10-metre line. Italy then in at the side of a maul. And up the line we go to the 10-metre line in the Italy half at this stage. Clock, though, has now gone into the red. Scotland going through the phases, and now one error and it's all over. Dempsey gets from the edge of the 22. Tuipulotu then carries them into the 22. They're around about 30 phases at this point, but then Williamson gets held up in the tackle. That's full time. 18 points to 15. Italy win, and it's a really much deserved win for them as well. It would have been one of those ones where, if Scotland had nicked it at the end, you would have felt like they didn't really deserve it. So let's have a look at the stats, and then we'll come back and chat about each of the teams. So let me pull up the official stats here. Okay, so first of all, possession 35 to 65. So, plenty of ball for Scotland. And then territory, 31% to 69%. So Scotland, most of the ball and most of it in Italy's half, but they no cutting edge really, and I thought Italy defended really well in the game as well. Attacking minutes then, 14.5 from Italy, 22.4 for Scotland, 2 tries each. So Italy, 7 minutes of attacking per try, and for Scotland, it's 11 minutes. Then we have carries, 84 to 146. Meters carried, 435 to 534. Meters gained, then 289 to 213. And that's a significant stat because, Italy made 70 more meters than Scotland, on the carries for 100 meters less carried, right? So like that is fantastic, I think, from them, and a really big impact as well. And in terms of, meters made per carry, you're talking about 3.5 meters made per carry for Italy, and that's compared to 1.5 for Scotland. So massive difference between the teams. And if you got that front foot, when you're in possession, it doesn't matter then the fact that Scotland had twice as much ball as Italy, because when Italy had the ball, they were going forward compared to Scotland, who were either static or going backwards. Then line breaks 6-0. Like you look at that the talent in that Scotland team, and to think that they got 0 line breaks is crazy. And then when you look at defenders beaten as well, 17 defenders beaten for Italy, 26 for Scotland. So they beat more defenders, but they couldn't turn any one of those into a line break. Like Italy turned about 1 in 3 of their defenders beaten into a line break. Scotland 0. And I think that's a damning stat for Scotland, especially the Scotland coaches. Total pass then 68 to 131. Offload 6 each. Handling errors 12 for Italy, 7 for Scotland. So at least the handling errors, weren't too bad from Scotland. But the fact that they're not making any line breaks, kind of asks the question, were they being a little bit conservative because of the conditions, and therefore, they, not forcing it, but at the same time, because they didn't force it, they didn't get any reward really from it either. And then turnovers conceded, 15 for Italy, 10 for Scotland. But the problem was, especially for Scotland, is that those turnovers, knock-ons, lead to scrums. Italy way on top in the scrum. I know Scotland won 2 penalties, I think, at the scrum in the game, but for the most part, Italy were absolutely on top in that, even on Scotland ball, pushing Scotland off their own ball and stuff like that. On to kicking then. So you have 34 kicks in play from Italy and 30 from Scotland, and the same kind of trend compared to, we saw I think 39 kicks each or something from Ireland and France in the first game. And now both these teams also 30 or more kicks in play. And generally you expect, for there to be round about kind of 25-ish kicks per team. Normally it's kind of between 20 and 26 kind of for most teams. Some teams kick a little bit less, some teams a little bit more. But to be in the 30s is, again, it's the conditions, slippery ball, you're putting the ball up, you're hoping the opposition make the mistake, and it gains you kind of easy meters, right? And then in terms of kick meters, 802 to 732. So both teams kicking, round about that 25 meter mark, which is basically where you're going to have your contestable kicks. And then we have, so we had the short or tactical kicks, which are basically like most of them are box kicks. Some will be grubbers through or chip over the top or wherever, but most of them will be box kicks. 22 to 17. So The fact that Italy had more box kicks than Scotland, I think, tells you that, Fusco, I think, was doing a better job at it, and it was paying off more for them as well. On to defence then. Tackles made 188 to 86. Missed tackles 26 to 17. So we are at 84% tackle success from Italy, which is really good at Six Nations level. 77 from Scotland. It's certainly better than Ireland were against France, but still not where they want to be. You want to be in those 80s at least, or at the worst, kind of 79%. Doesn't sound that much, a few percent difference, but there wasn't much of a margin between the teams today on the scoreboard either. And that's what they always talk about, the fine margins, and those few percent could have made a massive difference for Scotland today. But yeah, I thought Italy were brilliant in defence. And what I liked about them was they were aggressive. They were getting really good line speed. They were getting up in Scotland's faces. And what they were doing as well is that people like were kind of shooting up, but they weren't kind of shooting up in isolation. If you watch Ireland's defence against France, Ireland did that a lot. They had like the likes of Ringrose and others shooting up out of the line, leaving gap behind that got exploited. Whereas when Italy shot up, the players on either side of that player came up as well, and because of that, then they were connected in the defence and they weren't leaving a gap there. At the same time, though, applying maximum pressure to the ball carrier. So I thought their defence really was excellent here. Then onto discipline. Penalties conceded 16 for Italy, and if the game had gone a different way, you would have said like that. Well, first of all, it is too many to give away, but one of the headlines would have been Italian ill discipline costing the game or something like that, right? But 16 penalties conceded by them. 12 for Scotland isn't great either. Again, we always talk about keeping in single figures at least. And I think between France and Ireland, they conceded 10 penalties, 4 for France and 6 for Ireland. So, massive penalty count in this game compared to that, almost 5 times as many. Free kicks conceded then 1 from Scotland. Then we have offensive penalties, 4 each, and defensive penalties 12 to 8. And, those from Italy were kind of around that period around the Dempsey try where Italy were under that pressure and they were giving away the penalties. Yellow cards then, 1 for Scotland and none for Italy. Okay, next then we go to the breakdown. So breakdown's 152 to 128. 4 rucks lost to 3. And then in terms of quick ball, so quick ball is 0 to 3 seconds. 41% for Italy is pretty decent. 49% for Scotland is very good. And then you think, they've all that ball. They've got half of it is really fast ball, and they're still not able to break down that Italian defence. And again, you've got to give credit to Italy for that. Obviously, there has to be some stick, or more than just some stick, for Scotland and especially their coaches, but you still have to, it was Italy's defence that prevented that. Then we have medium ball, which is 4 to 6 seconds, 18% to 32. And then slow ball, which is 6 seconds or more, 41% for Italy, which is a big portion, and 19% for Scotland. So, Italy had a lot of slow ball in that game, but they still made it work for them overall. Then we go on to set piece, and I think this is certainly going to be damning for Scotland. So first of all, scrums, Italy 6 from 6, Scotland 5 to 5 from 6 themselves. So on the face of it, doesn't look too bad, but again, Italy were way on top in that. Like, Scotland getting the ball out under pressure, and it wasn't clean ball for them. Lineouts then, Italy 14 from 16, which is a decent return, especially when Scotland stole one of them as well. But Scotland 14 from 19 and 4 steals. by Italy. So they lost 5 lineouts, and 4 of them were stolen by Italy. And that's just amazing lineout defense from Italy there, and put on massive pressure. And I talked about it as well in the Ireland game, that Ireland were so afraid of the French maul that they, for the most part, they weren't putting a jumper up to compete, and they were just letting France have the line out, and then hoping to basically stop the maul before it got any momentum. But they had Keane Prendergast on from the start, who's a very good defensive line-out jumper, and I couldn't understand why they didn't put him up. Italy had Zambronin on their side. They put him up, and he's stealing ball left, right, and centre in the line-out. And excellent performance from him, but excellent performance all around from Italy as well. Then, so if we come back then and talk about the team, so we start with Scotland first. So Scotland cockholed a little bit, certainly at the start of the game, worked their way back into it a little bit, but then errors, giving away penalties, and just really great defense from Italy stripped that momentum away from them. It then swung back to Italy, and they got themselves that little bit in front, and Scotland couldn't come back from it. And we've seen the Scotland team previously being able to go down 20, 30 points against certainly better teams than this Italy team, and being able to find a way back. But today it wasn't happening for them. And something that you've got to think about with the Scotland team is Glasgow absolutely flying it in the URC and in Europe. One of the form teams in Europe, not just in the URC. In the Champions Cup, it was them and Bordeaux, and that's the Bordeaux team who provided all of those exciting players that we saw. Tearing Ireland a new one on Thursday night, as well as all the brilliant Toulouse players. But, so you got them, and then Glasgow were the only other team that were up to that level of performance through the pool stages of the Champions Cup. They then come in to the Scotland setup, and they produce a performance like that. And that's where I feel like the difference between the Scotland performance and the Ireland performance for me, because Ireland, we talked about all season, Leinster, they're not in good form this season. They're winning games, but there's always that, vulnerability about them, even though they've gone on a bit of a winning run. You have then, Munster, massive dip in form from them. Ulster on the up a little bit. And then Connacht, they're still the same kind of wishy-washy, up and down performances. So there's nothing really drive that coming in you would think would drive a really good performance from Ireland from the point of view of how they're doing domestically. Whereas Scotland, the opposite way, coming in, and lots of those players that are there would have been on, massive highs from the way they've been performing from, at their club. And as well, you got Russell there, Bath flying in the Premiership as well. So you got tons of confidence coming in. And then it's almost like the Scotland setup, strips away that confidence. And then you get performances like this out of it. That's the way kind of I feel, and the fact that as well, you have again in Glasgow, a team that, have that ability in the set piece to, they've got one of the best lineouts in the URC, probably for me, the best small attack, in the Northern Hemisphere, at least. So inventive and, almost always delivers. But then these players go into Scotland and they produce stuff like this. So for me, there's got to be massive questions, asked of the coaches, especially Gregor Townsend. And we already talked about before the tournament even started about, the whole thing of, has Townsend kind of taken them as far as he can? Like, are they going to miss out on the chance, with Franco Smith? And, what's going on there? Are they kind of missing a trick with that? So more question marks obviously going to be, or questions, going to be asked now of that Scotland coaching team, I think. But, are the SRU going to be brave enough really to replace their coach? Like, was it a year and a half or whatever out from a World Cup? I don't know. I don't know about that at the minute. But yeah, for me, very disappointing from Scotland. Then let's talk about Italy. So Italy, again, line speed and defense, excellent. Aggression at the breakdown, brilliant. Their, strength in the carry, very good. Support play, brilliant. Set piece, out of this world. They had all of the pieces were there, and they added up to this victory. The one thing I would be, I won't say critical about, but the one worry that I had during the game was the fact that kind of going down the stretch, that they were kind of happy. Well, I won't say happy, but it's almost an instinctual thing for a team like Italy, who don't win all that many games, to kind of sit on a lead and defend it a little bit, rather than kind of trying to go and get that extra score that is definitely going to seal the win, to win for them. And it's just that kind of tightness, and it's a nervousness, that teams that, aren't often in this position at test level. It just happens naturally to them. It's happened to, unless you're one of the big teams. And when I say big teams, I mean historically. So I'm talking about like New Zealand, South Africa, England, maybe France, maybe Australia, and not really anyone outside of that. Unless you're in that group, your team over the last, 20 odd years has gone through that period of, we're not winning all that many games. And, they almost beat themselves at times as well in tight matches because of that. And that was my fear for them. But other than that, the performance was absolutely brilliant from them. And you've got to give massive credit to Casada as the coach, because he did the opposite to Townsend. Townsend took basically a group of players who were superbly confident, in great form, and made them, or ended up with them playing terribly. And Casada took, a core group. Some of them are obviously playing in the top 14, but you've got a lot of those players are playing at Benetton, some at Zebre as well. Benetton not doing great in Europe this year. They weren't brilliant at the Challenge Cup level. In the URC, it hasn't been a brilliant season for them either. They're further down the table than we'd normally maybe would expect them to be. And then Zebre in the URC on a 9-game losing streak. At the start of the season, Zebre looking good, won their first 2 games in the league, but since then, they've just lost every game. It's either 9 or 10 games on the trot now that they've lost in the URC. So, confidence for them certainly should not have been up at the level that the Scotland guys had coming into this game. But Casada and his coaching group took those guys, and they obviously gave them that confidence that they could go out there and perform. And they did it. And as I said, they did it in almost every facet of the game. So they've got to get massive credit for that. And, from my point of view as well, I predicted Italy for the wooden spoon. Obviously, that's not going to happen now. I'm happy for them about that as well. And the main thing that I'm so happy about is it means that another year is going to pass without idiots saying Italy shouldn't be in the Six Nations. They've got their win now. Whatever they do in the rest of the tournament, I hope they do well in the rest of the tournament. Not so well against Ireland, but I hope they do well in the rest of the tournament. But whether they do or not, at least that kind of cry of, oh, let's kick out Italy and bring in Georgia or whoever instead of them will kind of go away for another year, and they can just focus on getting better as well. And that's really what I want to see. What I want to see is a game to grow. Teams like Italy and even the teams below them as well have to get better. And so hopefully this is a step in the right direction for them. For Scotland, it's certainly a step backwards, and again, major questions for those coaches and for the SRU to answer.